The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it is Monday in the Riv.
Live television.
Live television. We had a little problem. I guess we started like, not really that much later.
No, only a couple of minutes.
Couple of minutes late, but we apologize. But live TV is live TV.
Live TV is live TV.
It's kind of like life. It's kind of like life. It's not what you make it.
Well, did you get your request? Or I should say, yeah, they're requesting people. Did you get yours for the MBTA sign?
You know, I haven't. I left them my CAG email, and I haven't checked my actually.
Well, no, this is from the South Coast Chamber and the Rail to Boston Public Political Action Committee, and they're offering signs to vote yes on the Rail to Boston.
Well,
now this is very interesting because, remember, this is not citizens like the people who are saying no. This is businessmen, realtors. Realtors is the big one.
Mostly from out of town.
And they're right, from New Bedford, Acushnet, not from Fall River. You know what? You want to push that in New Bedford, knock yourself out. Don't come to Fall River. Okay? But you know why? It's because it's the South Coast Chamber of Commerce now.
Exactly.
Which is both Fall River and New Bedford.
Exactly.
So.
And look, but you're right. And this is the thing. This is a Fall River initiative.
That's right.
Fall River people are voting on this thing. Yet all the money people from all the area, so that kind of, and that kind of segues into your weekend flush, because your flush talked about it. And this is the thing. Let's face this. They are pushing like hell because they're all going to make a lot of money.
That's right.
They're going to make a lot of money with developing. They're going to make a lot of money. They're driving up the rents. This is a human issue now. This transcends whether it's going to be good or bad. Like I said, the average person in Fall River is not going to. That's not going to change their life one iota, except for a negative. That's the reality of what we see here. It's going to increase their rents. It's almost unaffordable now. They're never going to write it because they can't afford to go to Boston. They can barely afford to live in Fall River. And this is the reality of what we're looking at. And then, as you said in your flush, you talked about the two people who spoke. And I think that again, we have people from out of town pushing. They always push for Fall River people, and the average Fall River, they get screwed. The Chamber of Commerce is always there trying to get tax breaks for themselves so they can take their money out of Fall River and impose that burden on the residential taxpayer of Fall River. Now we got them put up signs in your city so we can make money in your city and then take our money out of your city. And, this is the irony of it. Then you look at those two people you talked about. One guy's an urban planner. He worked all over the world. Well, I guess he's not that good because I'll tell you what, if I was working in Europe or something like that, I could take advantage of the culture and seeing places
and the rail
and they're very, very efficient in Europe transit system. I wouldn't come back to Fall River, but he's making money on Route 79, as you so aptly pointed out in the flush. And then the other guy, you see, this is the problem. We saw what happened. You get up there, you ask a couple of questions. First, they want to shut you off like they did with the first presenter because she started naming names and implying some sweetheart deals. And then the rest of them, you're deflecting. No, it's an observation. They immediately, then they had to go look for people. Then they got the other guy. It's the other guy that fascinates me. This is why we extended the invitation for them to come on for an hour or so. Because, I would have liked to have been able to ask questions of the presenters. They could, like you said, they could ask questions of me or Nelson, and I'd said, I'm a concerned citizen. There's a human impact here. I can give my reasons for being up there and asking the questions that I asked. Now, when you have those two promos, from shills, I'd like to ask the guy, You said you moved to Fall River 10 years ago just because the rail was coming. Really? So you've been living in Fall River fraught with anticipation of this rail, because what is it going to do? Did you move to Fall River 10 years ago and avail yourself of all our Italian restaurants? Oh, wait a minute, we don't have any Italian restaurants.
That's right.
Did you avail yourself of all our arts and culture? Wait a minute, we don't have any of that either. Did you avail yourself of anything except Portuguese food, which is good, but that's all we got? You know, takeout Chinese, pizza places, and you got McGovern's, it's basically an old American comfort food place. But I mean, you can go down the road to Seekonk, they got more restaurants on Route 6 from the Seekonk line to the East Providence line than we got in Fall River, and much diverse.
Right.
Much more diverse. Why did you come to Fall River? Did you come because it's a low crime area? Oh no, wait a minute, we're #1 in crime. Did you come here to avail yourself? Do you have children? You wanted to come from wherever you live near Boston and put your children in a school system that can't crack the top 200? It doesn't make sense. This is the last place you'd come. And if you were really that hot to move to Fall River and it was only because of the rail to make your trip easier, you're going to move farther away from Boston and then take the T up to Boston. You know, I mean, when you start breaking this stuff down and looking at what they said, and the way they said it, you know, as you said in your flush, people who got up there had legitimate concerns, because they're from the community and they had legitimate concerns about what this was going to do to the community. Because this just isn't a ride, as they're trying to say. It's a ride. They're going to bring everybody. Yeah, everybody from Boston's going to come down here to shop in a Gucci. Wait a minute, we don't have a Gucci shop, do we? We don't have high-end stores.
Oh, well, actually, now we do. Merrow Knits on Bedford Street.
Yeah.
$100, $200, $300 sweaters.
Oh, but that Fall River, that's a lot of money. But you pay $3,000 for a Gucci bag.
No, but, you know, it's just like, what's the name of that towel place up in the...
Matouk.
Matouk, that's it, Matouk,
yeah.
okay? $300 towels.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. Nobody in Fall River's got one, and if they do, that towel better last for 300 years.
Yes.
So, but you know, the whole thing is that, look, this is more than just a ride. You have to look at a community, the impact it's going to have on a community. Is it going to bring restaurateurs down here? Are you nuts? Restaurants are having a hell of a time everywhere, staying in business now. With the food prices, with the food, the chain. You can't get products. You can't get things. I saw a thing the other day. Some guy that said, some restaurateur was talking. He said eggs used to be $40 a case or something like that, at 80 something a case. They've doubled in price. And I mean, what? They keep talking about it's going to bring like this giant wave of stuff. Everybody's going to come down and open up businesses in a city that has one of the lowest incomes in the state. How are they going to stay in business? They can't stay in business now, and they won't stay there. And whether they know it or not, and I'm not sure if it's, you know, I'll tell you, years ago when I was on the GI Bill, I had to take a lot of courses, you know, because I was going to get paid, and so I always kept a full load. And sometimes I ran out of stuff to take. And I actually took a course in small business management. And I think the statistic is still pretty accurate, that most small businesses don't last a year.
no, they don't.
Because in order to open a small business, you should have like 2 or 3 years worth of making no money. And most of them don't.
Right.
So how are people, you know, that's a con. People are going to come down to open up businesses in Fall River. Why? Because all these people are going to come down and fill up all the market rate housing. Well, they're not going to do it in a year. They're not going to do it ever. But they're not all going to be filled up. And they're not all going to shop in Fall River. The reason Fall River was a success at one time and had businesses is because everybody worked. Everybody worked in a mill. Everybody worked somewhere. And every store was filled. This is a giant con. It's about money for the privileged rich versus the impact on the average people. And that's what it's about. And the people who went up there with questions, who they didn't like at all, as you said in this flush, that's not what they anticipated, had a legitimate concern. they had to go out and say, hey, somebody get up there and talk positive, and the two people they picked, they were obviously there just to promote the tea. Because what they said had no substance. Oh, I came back to Florida to work on it. No kidding, you're getting paid to work on it. And the other guy said, I've been living here for 10 years waiting for it. And that makes no sense.
You know, what's very interesting about this whole thing is that had they taken the questions from the people, like them or not, people would have a little bit of trust in them. Had the Chamber of Commerce kept its nose out of this issue, people would have had a little more trust. And had the MBTA held regular meetings with the public, and I don't want to hear the excuse anymore, well, the city was in turmoil and we couldn't do it. Well, the city wasn't in turmoil when Paul took office. Why didn't we start doing it then? Oh, wait, we had COVID. COVID's the excuse. Okay? We needed that public information before this. And the one question that still goes unanswered is, why wasn't this vote taken 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, before $900 million was spent? Why wasn't the vote taken then? And here's my argument with that. The vote wasn't taken then because they could say like they did now, well, the job's almost done. We're almost done. And now, if you don't vote for this, you will lose all this money. We're not going to lose it. The state did it. Yeah. Now, here's another one that everyone missed the boat on. Even if we don't get the train in Fall River, all you got to do is go up the road a couple of miles. There's going to be a station in Freetown.
Yep.
I'm not sure where that station is. It's probably over by the Stop and Shop warehouse, but there's going to be a train in Freetown.
Yeah.
I don't know if they have parking there for it, but again, use the parking lot down in Fall River and shuttle them up there. Because CERTA, we're paying for CERTA, we might as well use them. So these are issues that we need to address. And people say, well, even if you vote no, we're still going to have the train in Fall River. No, it's not going to be in Fall River. It's going to be in Freetown. They're going to store them in Fall River. But Fall River will not be responsible financially for the tea. And that's the key.
Well, yeah. Well, the key here is, listen, there's so many holes in this story that they have. We know that they've been trying to get their mitts on the waterfront forever. And they do now. When they get the tea in, they're going to have their mitts all over the waterfront. We know that they extended the zone to include certain people's developments outside that zone.
That's right.
So we know this is a push for the average, for the rich people, the developers that's had the cabal that's had a stranglehold on Fall River for 30 years. But you know the part that got me when you reflect back on it? When they were asked, why didn't we vote 30 years ago? They said, we only found out about this last year. Really? Well, what happened to remember all the things that our elected officials were saying? We've been crying for this for 30 years. Yeah, everybody wants this. And my response to that is everybody I know, nobody really was crying about having a tea. They don't give a damn if we got a tea or not.
Right.
And the reality is, we've been trying to get this for 30 years. So they've been trying to get it, but nobody knew they were trying to get it, and it was coming. So the people up there actually said they didn't find out about this till last year. So that means 28 years we've been wanting it, but nobody figured out that we needed a vote under the law, right? Until last year. This is so much, it's just like the multiplier principle, and I did call my rep and said, listen, if they're going to do a presentation and they have a CPA, and he's going to talk about what a great deal we are because our multiplier is going to be 1. I think Paul said 0, but 0 and 1 are the same thing. And there's no 0 technically. 0 means nothing. So you're going to multiply it by nothing, but this you multiply by 1, you get the same number. So but again, he's bad with numbers and math. But the reality is that they said like this is going to be forever, and they implied that it's only on proximity, but it may be on ridership, and things like that, because you get a penalty for underwritership. If you get a lot of if this thing is a super success and they're coming from all over the world and we got a ton of stuff, who knows if they're not going to increase the multiplier principle, because they're going to say it's taking more maintenance and stuff. But all that stuff is secondary. But you're going to talk about the multiplier principle. He said Boston's an 18. He said Cambridge is a 9. So I told her, I said, please. I said, when we go up there, if I read statistics, I'll read them off of paper, and I'll give you where I got them from. The stuff I read about Fall River was the United States Census Bureau. The latest, I got it that day, right off the U.S. Census Bureau, about per capita income, household income, and stuff like that. The multiplier principle is 12 for Cambridge and Brookline. The other surrounding towns are about 9, like Watertown, Arlington, and stuff like that. They're 9. So, okay, everybody makes mistakes, but I think that's something you shouldn't have made a mistake when you were trying to make a point of the multiplier. So again, you know, you got to, like you said, they don't care. Okay, we'll acknowledge that, okay, maybe it's not going to cost us anything for a while, and we questioned the CERTA agreement, because he even said, well, you guys got no cap. We got a cap. CERTA kind of like, you guys are always going to be paying more to CERTA maybe than you're going to pay to the MBTA, which means that we got to look at CERTA.
Right.
So we're accepting some of their stuff. Okay, I accept the fact that we are paying, and that's the thing that Paulie always said, oh, we're not paying a dime. Now it's all of a sudden, well, we pay what we pay. Yeah, we're already paying it. And it's not 1.5 million. Our share is 600,000. So that's 60 million pennies already. So we're paying, and we were going to pay whether we got the T or not, because we've been paying CERTA for all these years. But, you know, the thing that disturbs me is we listened to them, and we said, okay, we understand the multiplier principle. Okay, maybe we're not going to pay, you know, we're going to continue to pay CERTA anyway, so it might be a wash for a while. We've asked for projected figures. They admitted they were in a terrible financial hole. They also said, well, we don't think they're going to change the law, which is, you know, yeah, give me a break. But the key here is the people who walked up to that mic and asked questions were concerned Fall River citizens, people who understood the impact on the average low and fixed income people of Fall River. They had a legitimate concern. And they were basically kind of, you know, I know he said, you're trying to deflect. And it wasn't a deflection, it was an observation. I was saying something that I read in the paper. That's a deflection. No, it's not. It's not. It's an observation. What he did was a deflection.
Right.
So it's like they deflected that entire everybody that spoke was like, the T's wonderful. Yeah, but what's it going to do to the rent? The T's beautiful. What's it going to do to that zone? We lose control of the zone. The T is wonderful. They don't even acknowledge that. It is a tale of two cities.
And what
the
was
city that average people live in, and a city that the rich people want to see.
Right, and the thing that got me, which was very funny, was after the meeting, when I spoke about the zone, they said, we had, remember we had nothing to do with that. That was the governor. The governor did that. Talk to your state legislature, because the governor did it with the support of the state legislature. Okay, no problem. I can understand that. But how come it only applies to where the T is? And how come, while it says affordable housing in it, everyone's building market rate housing? And I made it very clear, and I think I said this in the last show, I made it very clear that Paul Coogan and Ken Fiola will not promote, will not support affordable housing. Although the Preservation Society is going to be opening a building that has 4 affordable housing units. So get ready for the lottery, people, to get into that.
We only got like about 50,000 people that are in that pool. Right. So this is absurd, and we know that. As you said, listen, people that got up there and spoke have a legitimate concern. They had numbers, they had facts, they had, and the thing is, they were dismissive of this because to them, their good will override that bad.
And they actually kept saying that.
Yeah.
They actually kept saying that.
But that's not true, because the truth is in the eye of the beholder. To the 50 or 60,000 renters in this city who are struggling now for rents that have almost doubled already and will go up even higher and will not be able to do anything because they can't afford food, they're living paycheck to paycheck. That is not their truth. Their truth is that this is going to destroy the city that they live in, put them out of a home. Where are they going to go? They can't go. There's no place cheaper than Fall River.
That's right.
You're going to have to go to another quote-unquote Fall River-like city. What are they going to do? Move to Lowell or Lawrence? It's the same thing
But
over there.
They've already been changed.
Yeah,
They've been
exactly.
gentrified.
So, but that's the key. Their perspective, and then I'll let you go, because their perspective is kind of like the perspective of the people in Martha's Vineyard. We love all you poor people. We love you illegals. We love all you, the great unwashed. Come. There's no such thing. No human is illegal. We love you all. Come to us. As soon as they ship 50 over there, or 100,
Get rid of them.
Their heads exploded. Get the National Guard. 90,000 rooms empty. They're putting them up in hotels in New York, Chicago, everywhere. Not in Martha's Vineyard. They weren't occupying those Martha's Vineyard rooms. They stuck them in a church hall or something
That's
like
right.
that, sleeping on the floor. They're out the next day. They're hypocrites. Just like the people who were pushing the MBTA. Who are they? All the rich guys from the chamber? All the rich developers? All the rich bankers? All Paul's rich friends. These are the people that say, let them eat cake. If I had my way, there would be no poor people. I don't want to see them. It's like Martha's Vineyard. We can pretend we like them, but as one newly elected congressperson said, the only time they want to see brown people is if they've got a leaf blower or a mop in their hand.
Yeah. And, that's...
And this is the thing. They can pretend that this is going to help. You know the old saying, rising tide lifts all boats? No, it doesn't. What happens is a rising tide drowns the people at the bottom, and that's what this does.
And that's what's going to happen. And what's really interesting is, remember what Paul said? Well, if they can't find a place to live in Fall River, let them go to New Bedford. Or was that Ken? Was that Paul or Ken who said that? If they can't find a place to live in Fall River, let them go to New Bedford.
I'm going with Malone. Let them go to Russia. It's cheaper over there. Let them go to Russia. And the other one is Surratt. She was the one. Isn't that the one that said that in front of council?
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah. If they don't like this, let them move out.
Yep.
They don't like the way everything. But see, that's the attitude of the elitists. Take off, disappear. Well, you can't. You're screwed. You're making $26,000 a year. Where are you going to move? Are you going to move to Boston? That's about 3 months' rent in Boston.
Right.
In a crap hole.
Right.
I mean, look, let's look at this really, really objectively. The average person in Fall River, and everybody can have their own opinion, this will have more negative impact than positive impact. And the rich people, they only look at the positive because they're all making money.
Somebody asked how come the MBTA has theirs on the state ballot. I don't believe they do.
No, the law says it has to be a separate
ballot. Yes.
It has to be on a separate ballot.
I don't believe it's on the state ballot. I believe that, like in Fall River, it's on a separate ballot. And this kind of segues into something I was saving for the end of the show, but somebody brought it up.
Well, you can drag it out to the end. We only got 4 minutes. Go. Take off.
Ryan Lyons, the elections commissioner, sent out a memo that he received the MBTA question ballots on Friday. And because of the way the question is set and the way the law is, you will get 2 ballots in the mail if you're going to vote by mail, or if you have absentee or whatever you want to call it. You will get one for the state election and one for the MBTA question. Do not put them in the same envelope to mail them back to government center. If you do that, they will be disqualified. You have to put them in the envelopes they came with. One will say state election on it. The other will probably say city election or ballot question or something. I'm not sure. I haven't gotten mine yet. But make sure that you keep them in their separate envelopes that they came with, because the ballots already went out once, so you should have already gotten your state ballots from the elections office if you're voting absentee or mail-in. And sometime this week, in the next couple of days, you should be getting the MBTA question ballot. So be sure that you put them in their separate envelopes so that your vote doesn't get disqualified. It's very important that you do that. Ryan made it very clear. He doesn't want to disqualify any votes. He doesn't want to hear from people that, oh, my vote was disqualified because of this. But just so you know, be looking for 2 ballots. Now, the other interesting thing that I mentioned in the flush, it was in Boston.com,
Yeah.
which is actually a division of, I believe, the Boston Herald.
Yeah.
A nice article about rent increases around T stations.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, the people that were there were on top of it. We've been talking about this since the beginning. We've been
Right.
talking about. Matter of fact, on the last show, you made a statement about the state average versus Fall River that
Right.
you did yourself, and of course, I know that created a lot of controversy.
That's right, it
because
has.
they were going, that's not true. That's not
Right.
true, but it is true.
Right.
It is true. And this is only the beginning. This is the tip of the iceberg. Once they get their mitts on a waterfront with the zoning, it's going to drive everything up. And, you know, ultimately this will blow up in their faces because they'll never, ever be able to sell all the properties. It's going to be Point Gloria revisited. Remember Point Gloria?
Yes, I do.
That's what's going to happen.
And you know what's going to be very interesting? Because remember, when the Route 79 gets taken out of there and they build their boulevard, there's going to be 10+ acres available for development. It's not going to be businesses. How much you want to put money that it's not businesses? How much you want to make a bet that it's all apartments?
Or mostly.
Or office space.
Mostly.
Or office space, okay? And that's not what it was supposed to be for. It was supposed to be so that that whole area was supposed to be for businesses. For what? For tourism.
Yeah.
For tourism.
True. Yep, they're all going to come down. Let me put my. I'll pretend this is an envelope. You remember Johnny Carson? Yeah.
Karnak the
the Magnificent. I see. Listen. If they build office space, you know who I see occupying that office space? Local entities. Because if you track very closely and see a lot of these rich developers who have built office space, they're not getting a lot of out-of-towners here.
No.
You know who you get? South Coast. They're on the board of directors of all these places.
That's right.
And they get on the board of directors, and all of a sudden, they get rich off rents they're getting from people who's you know, they have an interest in. They're on the board of directors, or they have friends who are on the board of directors, and they're looking for space all the time because, you know, medicine, Fall River, people get sick. And you know, you look at some of these places, it's not an accident that all of a sudden you see these spaces being used by local entities that are connected. This is a giant cabal. That's
And I'm going to tell you now, I can't see our economic development consultant turning around and saying that he's not going to put housing in there. I know this housing is going to go in there. My Karnak the Magnificent move. In which case, that will destroy what the T is supposed to be trying to create. And that's the problem.
Yep.
People don't want to hear that at all. And, you know, we can be called naysayers and being negative and, you know, negative Nellies or whatever you want to call us. Guess what? We're at least being honest about it. We're trying to tell you the truth. We're trying to give you what to look at. We're not telling you to vote yes. We're not telling you to vote no. We're telling you to look at the situation. Don't go by what you hear. Research it. Research what other towns are doing, like Rockport, like Bourne. Look at those things. Well, I want to thank you all for watching. It's been a wonderful time with you. Remember, stay safe, stay angry, and hold your politicians accountable. We'll see you on Wednesday.